Guyana, and on this auspicious day, the managers and staff of 107.1 FM would like to extend to all Amerindians a happy Amerindian Heritage Month 2021. Amerindians reflect the lifestyle, beliefs, and way of life of people who are born in an Amerindian village. We here at 107.1 FM are part of the process of preserving the Amerindian heritage and to be the source of reference. Happy Amerindian Heritage Month 2021, Guyana.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dog-a-bark, donkey bray, horse and neigh, even duck-a-quack. Cock-a-crow, dog-a-bark, donkey bray, horse and neigh, even duck-a-quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetch the load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Bangameri. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell some picnic a there with fright. Oh Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh Ligan, Moon gazer, Massa Kurman Nancy, even Watamuma. Yeah man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.
That little ditty we used to torment our teachers with when we were kids. It goes something like this. Onward, upward, Mary had a go. Day by day she tied it to a rope, till at length they got past the rope, and Miss Mary had to run behind it. We had a lot of fun with that, but do you actually know how beautiful these words are? Here's the Song of Guyana's Children by W. Hawley Bryant. of the mighty Roraima, land of great rivers and far-stretching sea. So like the mountains, the sea, and the river, great, wide, and deep in our lives would we be. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be. Born in the land of Kaichur, shining splendor, land of the palm tree, the croton and fern, we would possess all the virtues and graces, we all the glory of goodness would learn. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be.
Hello, good night, and welcome to the Ganesh Mahipaul's show here on Benchcop Radio 107.1 FM. As you know, I am here with you yet another Wednesday where we are expected to discuss some very important matters concerning the welfare and well-being of the Guyanese people. And tonight promises to be an exciting night because it is one where we are expected to be educated on budget and budget presentation and preparation at the level of regional democratic councils. So it is promising to be an exciting discussion. But before we can get into that discussion, it requires of you to pay the price of admission, and that is to share this live stream. I have two distinguished gentlemen to bring before you, but of course, we need to reach that magic number. I do notice that we are climbing and climbing steeply there, but I do call on you to share the live stream so that this informative discourse can become one where everyone can at least know what is it that you do when it comes to budget preparation at the level of the RDC. So I see people like Errol Pratt, I see people like Orn Albert, Donnet Joseph, all top fans. I see Tony Hack. Tony Hack, can you please share the live stream? Nazian, I see Nazian is saying happy birthday, Mark. Something has happened there that we don't know about. Danet Booker, all of you who are looking at this program right now, the price of admission is to share the live stream. So please help us to spread the word so that everyone can become educated on the topic at hand. Before I go to my two distinguished guests, I will like to continue to extend Indigenous Month greetings to all our Indigenous brothers and sisters. And we are also in the month, Education Month, but we know that it's a whole different setting when it comes to what is happening here in Guyana and our teachers and how they are being treated. It's quite unfair and unfortunate that the very Minister of Education, Priya Manik Chan, in 2018, when these teachers were protesting for what they believed in, Priya Manik Chan supported, jumped on the bandwagon, and made calls for their requests to be honored. And here we have the same set of teachers protesting her now, and she is labeling them otherwise. Well, Priya coined the word hypocrite, and I think the definition of the word hypocrite is similar to that of hypocrite. So I guess tonight we can dub her hypocrite. But notwithstanding that, I encourage all Guyanese to pay attention, stay focused on what is happening. I noticed Venezuela The opposition and government has teamed up in a common cause to basically say Essequibo belongs to them. I don't know when the Irfan Ali installed regime will begin the process of consultation so that we can discuss these sensitive matters that has to do with our people. He is awaiting, his ego is taking the better of him as far as I'm concerned. But notwithstanding that, we have to hold a focus and stay abreast with what is happening in our country, and we must not be caught off guard. And one way of ensuring that we're not caught off guard is to stay on top of current affairs and at the same time know the process, know the processes, and know the system that we have in Guyana so that we can become more familiar whenever discourse are occurring. We will be able to participate meaningfully by us understanding the system. And on that basis, I would like to ask my operator to bring on screen our two distinguished guests for tonight. And I would like to begin by first introducing to you uh, a man of great intelligence, a man whom I have known for a number of years, dating back 2007. And I want to say I'm a student of his, but then I don't want him to dispute that. So I'm not going to say that. And I also want to tell you that he has a wealth of knowledge in the local government system. He served before as a regional executive officer. He also served a number of years at the University of Guyana, being the registrar. And I must say he was a very effective registrar in terms of dealing with students and student issues. And also, he is currently a commissioner at Guyana Elections Commission. Also, he was a former member of parliament. And I know that because in my research, I picked up his name in the year 2005. So I guess it was during that period and even before and after. So, Mr. Vincent Alexander, a man with a wealth of knowledge in the field of local government, is my guest tonight because I want to discuss budget preparation at the local level. Mr. Alexander, good evening and welcome to Ganesh Mahipaul's show here on Benchcop Radio 107.1.
Thank you very much, Ganesh. Good evening to you and your viewers.
Thank you very much, sir. My second guest is a person who is also an academic, and this individual would have uh, played a very integral role at local level also. He served before as vice chairman and chairman of a neighborhood democratic council, and today he sits in the seat of vice chairman of the Demerara Mahaica region, Samuel Sandy. Samuel, welcome to Ganesh Mahipaul's show here on Benchcop Radio 107.1. Your mic is muted, Sandy.
Yes, good night, Comrade Ganesh Mahipaul and Comrade Vincent Alexander, and good night to all our viewers tonight.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I want us to get right into the discussion because it's a topical matter, and those who have been following what is happening in the Region 4 domain, they would understand why this is an important topic to discuss, and they would understand that it is necessary for us to discuss it so that the truth can be in front. I want Mr. Alexander to first give the background setting as to how is it that you arrive at a regional democratic council, and what is the position or the role of the, or who are the creatures of the regional democratic council? Mr. Alexander.
Thank you very much, Ganesh. First of all, a regional democratic council may also be referred to as a local government body. And the reason why it's referred to as a local government body is because It is government for a segment of the country. In this instance, we're talking about the government for Region 4, Demerara, Mahaica. That body is an elected body. So that's a very important point for us to underline. It's an elected body. It's elected by the citizens of the region, and it's intended to be responsible for public affairs in the region on behalf of those people who have elected it. So that body is accountable to the people, having been elected by the people. The Regional Democratic Council gets its authority from a number of sources. When the body is established, the minister establishing the body issues a constitutional order. And that order tells you a number of things. It tells you what's the name of the body, the name of the area the body is responsible for. So, for example, we are talking about the Regional Democratic Council of Region 4. That's the name of the body. The area would be Region 4, Eka Demerara region. It tells you how many persons will comprise the body. In other words, how many councillors are elected to comprise the body. It tells you that in that body, there is a chairperson and a vice chairperson along with the councillors. It also tells you the body has a number of committees. So you have the council of the councillors, then you have three committees which must be appointed. And those are the Finance Committee, I repeat that, the Finance Committee, the Works Committee, and they're responsible for infrastructure, and the Social Welfare Committee. But the body may also appoint other committees if it so wishes to do. Now, that aspect I've just referred to, the council and the committees, is in a sense the representative body of people who look after the interests of the people in the region which would have elected them. But in order for the work to be done based on the decisions of the council, there's an administration. And so there's an administrative arm, mark you arm, of the council that's responsible for executing the works. And that administrative arm is headed by a regional executive officer. A regional executive officer. That officer, in fact, wears three hats. Three hats. That officer, first and foremost, is the clerk or the secretary to the council. So the officer is responsible to the council as its record keeper. That person is the clerk of the council, the receiver of correspondence, the dispatcher of correspondence, the person who keeps the records for the council. But that officer is also the regional executive officer, being the person who heads the administration. Being the person who heads the administration. And so, sitting on the council, on one hand, that person is the clerk, but on the other hand, he reports to the council in relation to the work that is being done or the work to be done, and similarly conveys to the administration, his officers, the work to be done. He may, when he attends meetings, invite some of his officers, for example, the regional engineer and person of that like, to attend the meeting as well. In addition to being the clerk to the council and the regional executive officer, he's also the accounting officer. He's the person who ensures that the finances are managed in keeping with the financial regulations. Let me emphasize that. He doesn't make decisions of his own accord. What he does is to make sure that the work of the council in terms of its expenditure and in terms of its revenue, where there's revenue as well, is carried on in keeping with the financial regulations which are made available to the council by the Ministry of Finance. And so he's appointed as the accounting officer and is held responsible for adherence to the financial regulations. And so he and his administration is responsible for carrying out the work of the council. Now, as I said earlier, the work of the council is designated by a number of documents. First of all, the work of the council is designated by the constitutional order which establishes the council. So that's the first one. But it is not limited to that. The work of the council is also designed and prescribed in the Municipal and District Councils Act. The Local Democratic Organs Act, which is the act that provides for the establishment of the council, specifies that sections, I think 42 to 336, with some exceptions, of the Municipal and District Councils Act are also applicable to the Regional Democratic Council. So the Regional Democratic Council can find its authority for what it's doing in the Municipal and District Councils Act, sections 42 to section 333, with some exemptions. Thirdly, the Local Democratic Organs Act specifies that any ministry or state agency may delegate its functions to the Regional Democratic Council. That's, I think, section 10 of the Local Democratic Organs Act. And my knowledge suggests that there are certain ministries which have in fact delegated their functions to the Regional Democratic Council. And those ministries would be education, health,
Public Works, Health,
public works,
Agriculture.
and the local government ministry as well. So those ministries have delegated the work that they're authorized to do to the Regional Democratic Council to do on their behalf. Now, I want to emphasize this, that the constitutional order says what the council can do. The Municipal and District Councils Act says what the council can do. When a ministry delegates its functions, they are delegated to the Regional Democratic Council. So all of the functions we are talking about are functions of the Regional Democratic Council. They have
Which is the elected, which is the, and for clarity here, Mr. Alexander, which is the elected body that,
as I said at the inception,
people who live within the boundaries voted for at the regional elections.
Quite correct. So it is the
and
RDC.
I wanted to establish, and I think you did it in your first part, that whenever there is election or whenever there are elections in this country, that is the national elections, we really have regional elections too. So concurrently or simultaneously, we would normally have two elections, which is the national election that elects members of parliament and also or elect a list of candidates for the parliament and also the president. And then we also have regional elections where we vote at the bottom of the ballot paper and we elect our regional regional councillors. So it is two separate and distinct elections, and it gives electoral authority to whoever is. And when I say electoral authority, what I mean is the will of the people is being given to whoever is being elected. So can we therefore say, Mr. Alexander, that each region in Guyana, the 10 administrative regions that we have, there are 10 separate regional governments there?
Yes, they are. There are 10 separate regional governments with specified authority to do things within their regions. Those governments may be referred to, as I said earlier, as local authorities as well, but there are 10 regional governments established in keeping with the provisions of the Constitution and the enabling legislation, the Local Democratic Organs Act. 10 governments. And these are 10 representative governments in the sense that they are elected by the people to do two things: to conduct public affairs in those regions on behalf of the people of those regions, which includes service delivery to the people, but they are also elected as representatives. So separate and apart from the things that they do in terms of administering public affairs and delivering services, they're also empowered to represent the people of the particular region to other agencies whose work impact the regions and the citizens of those regions. So they're representatives as much as they're also responsible for the management of the regions to which they're elected.
So, Mr. Alexander, yes, I think we get the whole knowledge there in terms of why they are there and what purpose they are elected for. But in order for these elected councils to conduct their business, they must be resourced, or they must be provided with resources. And top of the list will be financial resources. And they're expected to get the financial resources to do their work. Now, any ordinary citizen will assume that in order for you to get the financial resource you want, you have to request what is it that you want to do. And you would have to request it from central government, because the Guyanese system is that you have one budget, one national budget that captures these 10 regional democratic councils. And region 1 is agency 71 in the budget, region 2 is agency 72, region 3 is agency 73, region 4 is agency 74, and it goes down that line. But for them to get that resource, it has to be approved by the National Assembly, and then it is dispersed to the Regional Democratic Council. But can you say to us, how is it that you arrive at a budget or a proposed budget or a draft budget so that you can make that request? Because I understand, sir, let me make this very clear. I understand that you can ask for $100 million. But if the national coffers don't have $100 million to give you, then you cannot expect to get that. But there has to be some degree of consultation, some degree of negotiation, some flexibility for you to finally arrive at a number. But before you can arrive at that number, you must have projects that are going to align so that the number can be attracted to each one of the projects. How do you arrive at that project? How do you arrive at that number or that figure? And how do you move forward in terms of presenting your proposal to the Ministry of Finance, after which it goes to Cabinet and then the National Assembly?
All right. I mentioned earlier that there are three sources of authority for the work done by a regional democratic council. That there is a constitutional order, that's one source. That there are orders based on delegation from ministries, that's another source. And the third source I mentioned was the Municipal and District Councils Act. But the fact of the matter is that in the main, regional democratic councils carry out delegated functions for those ministries we mentioned earlier. Local government, education, works or infrastructure they call it, agriculture, and health. So what happens is that those ministries have asked the regional democratic councils to do the works on their behalf in the regions. In order for the works to be done, monies have to be appropriated. These monies are appropriated by the Parliament and disbursed by the Ministry of Finance. So we know that there are areas in which they're authorized to do works, and we know that they have to be funded to do those works. We also know that the works they're doing are works based on a delegation from a ministry. So that what that delegation means is that the Regional Democratic Council is responsible for those works. When I say the council, I mean that body of people who constitute the council, which is a statutory body. The council is a legal body that has legal authority and legal responsibility and is answerable for what is done, the council, the Regional Democratic Council. So that the delegation is to the council, and similarly, the appropriation of monies for the works is to the Regional Democratic Council. But remember, I said that these councillors are representatives. So in terms of determining what works would be done, it is these representatives who are supposed to be in touch with their constituents to determine what are the needs in the local area, and based on those needs, to craft a budget. To craft a budget that will provide them with the finances to deliver the services which they are responsible for delivering on behalf of the ministries to which I refer. So that it is the council that has the responsibility for crafting the budget. How does the council do that? On one hand, the council consults with the people to determine what the people's needs are and are guided by the consultations in terms of what they want to put into the budget. So that's one. Secondly, there are some statutory things that have to be done, like paying the teachers, paying the health workers. And so the budget also caters for those statutory things. So what happens is this council, which is the policy body, having consulted with the people, would then advise the administration, the workers, the staff,
which is headed by the REO, which is headed
which
by the
is
clerk of council.
headed by the REO, who's also clerk of council. They would then advise them on what is it they would like to see in the budget. So it is the council that advises the staff, the workers, that one, please proceed to prepare a budget that meets our statutory expenditure. Please prepare a budget in keeping with the advice of this council in relation to what projects we would like to see realized under the various programs, on the education, on the health, on the infrastructure, on the local government. Please prepare a budget. Now, the staff would then do the budgeting in the sense that they would put dollars and cents to those things which ought to be done. So they put dollars and cents to the statutory
And that's because
expenditure.
the staff complement has the expertise, the engineers, the procurement officer, and all the other officers. They have to go out now and do their little what you say quotation or what's not, so that they can attach a dollar and cent to those projects.
Yes, they have to prepare the estimates for the works to be done. They are the ones who are tasked, having been given guidance by the council, to prepare estimates, because they would know what the prices are and things like that. So that's their job. When they prepare those estimates, they will then make a presentation of those estimates to the finance committee. That's a subset of the council. The finance
A standing committee, which is one of the three standing committees we spoke of.
mandatory standing committee. It's there for the purpose of dealing with the financial matters. And one financial matter is the finalization of the estimates. So they then make the presentations to the finance committee, which would then advise them as to whether what they have presented is acceptable or not, whether they should go back, make changes, etc. And when the finance committee is convinced that what they have presented is acceptable, that committee will then make that presentation to the council at large, which council at large will then approve of the estimates,
which is headed by the chairman of the council.
The finance committee is headed by the chairperson or a councillor. It depends on what the council decides. But the finance committee is essentially made up of councillors with officers as ex officio members. So it's the councillors who are the decision makers, but the officers are there to lend advice in the process. And so the councillors will then finalize, approve what is brought by the staff, and essentially by the REO, the Regional Executive Officer, would approve that. It is then taken to the RDC for the RDC's approval. And after the RDC would have approved it, it is then submitted to central government for passage in Parliament and subsequent to the appropriation, disbursement for the works to be done in keeping with what the budget provides for. So the responsibility of the budget is ultimately a responsibility of the council. And that is so because the council has a responsibility to the people to craft programs that will deliver services to the people. And that is what the Local Democratic Organs Act and the Constitution provides for. It provides for the council, the councillors as a collective, to be responsible to the people, to the management of the affairs of the region, including crafting a budget, which would then say what would be the program of work, the plan of work for any given year. The council would subsequently use that budget to monitor the works that are being carried out, because the works then have to be carried out in keeping with that budget. And so the council can monitor what's being done to ensure that those who are executing the work are executing works in keeping with the provisions of the budget as approved by the National Assembly, having been proposed by the Minister of Finance, who would have brought forward with changes in keeping with the financial capability of the government, that budget for approval to the National Assembly. So it is the council's budget, and the RU is responsible for the management, the administration of that budget as the accounting officer. But he does so in keeping with the financial regulations that are handed to him by the Ministry of Finance, where they would have appointed him as the accounting officer. I notice Ganesh is off screen. I don't know if we have lost him. But I hope we haven't lost our
Yes.
audience.
No,
What we have
this
just
is thing.
attempted to do is to explain that the Regional Democratic Council is a government for a local area, has responsibility for delivering services to the people, and in the course of doing so, is responsible for crafting its budget made up of estimates of the works it wants to do, which estimates are then sent to central government. But central government could trim it based on the monies available, make a proposition to Parliament, Parliament approves. Based on that approval, monies are disbursed on a monthly basis, and the RU is then responsible to take the disbursements and to implement the programs that were approved under the budget, and to account at the RDC meetings for the work being done in keeping with the programs that would have been approved by the RDC when they crafted the budget, and for which monies would have been provided by the central government. We have with us the regional vice chairperson. I have attempted to give an overview of how the work is done, and it's for him probably to be very specific about the operation in Region 4 in particular.
Thank you very much, Comrade Alexander. You have given us the ideal situation, ideally what should obtain in preparing a budget. I can safely say when I served at the level of the NDC, that is exactly how it was done. I'm surprised.
Sorry, guys. Sandy, let me cut you. I don't
Okay.
know if the vicious PPP tried to hack into my system there, but I was actually hearing Mr. Alexander, because I am monitoring this, what is going on also in the chat, so that if anybody has any question, they will be able to ask the question. But I was bounced off there just now, and I'm not sure what was the reason behind it. But Mr. Alexander, I like how you would have captured the information, so that how you would have presented the information for our audience to have a clear understanding of what is the ideal process that can lead to proper governance, and what was expected as enshrined in the Constitution, and so on. But we have a serious situation, sir, at the Demerara Mahaica region, region number 4. And I need to remind our listeners that even though we have an installed People's Progressive Party administration, of course, on fraudulent votes, as far as I'm concerned, because I keep reminding our listeners at the national recount, there were 49 ballot boxes without statutory documents to verify the votes found in them, and there were missing poll books, missing oaths of identity, identity, on signed oaths of identity, and a whole host of other malpractices, a whole host of other anomalies, abnormalities, irregularities, fraud. That is what elections 2020 constituted. Notwithstanding that, we do have an installed regime headed by Irfan Ali and the People's Progressive Party. But in that same election, or I should say in those elections, we also have the APNU AFC controlling three regions. Regions number 4, regions number 7, and 10. So the local government or the regional government of these three regions, the elected officials, the councillors, are from the APNU AFC side, while the national government is from the People's Progressive Party. The REOs in practice right now are creatures of, well, I will say cabinet for an understanding. And they receive their instrument from the finance secretary.
Ganesh, let me
But they
Ganesh, let me cut you there. Let me cut you there. I made the
go right
point
ahead,
earlier.
sir.
The REO wears three caps. REO, that person wears three caps.
Yes,
As clerk
agree.
of the council, he is a creature of the council. As clerk of the council, he is a creature of the council. As REO, he is a creature of the Ministry of Local Government. As a accounting officer, he's a creature of the Ministry of Finance. Let me say this as well. As clerk of the council, he is the receiver and sender of correspondence on behalf of the council. So if somebody wants to write to the Regional Democratic Council Region 4, the person addresses that to the council, but the receiver of the document in the first instance is the clerk. And I'm using that term, the clerk. The clerk is then obligated to bring the document to the council. It is not sent to him in his own right as REO or as accounting officer. It is sent to him as the secretary, the clerk to the council, who receives it on behalf of the council and brings it to the council's attention. The council then deals with the correspondence and advises the clerk how it should be dealt with, what should be the response, or what action should be taken internally based on what the correspondence may have addressed. So we need to be clear in understanding that the
Definitely.
so-called REO is also the clerk, and that's an office specifically related to the council. And if one looks at the Municipal and District Councils Act, it speaks to the role of the clerk. It says that the clerk of the RDC in that regard as clerk is similar to the clerk of a town council, right? But the clerk of the town council don't have all those other caps. But the Local Democratic Organ Act specifies that we must look at section 42 to 333 in relation to some things about the RDC. And one of those things is the clerk. And it says that the clerk operates in a manner similar to the clerk in the town council. It also speaks to the role of the finance committee. And it says the finance committee operates in a manner similar to the finance committee in the town council. And you would then know that in the town council, the clerk and the finance committee are both responsible to the council. So in the region, the
Definitely.
clerk and the finance committee are responsible to the council.
Definitely. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Alexander. I want to bring in Sandy here. And Sandy, sorry for keeping you this long, but I know you will agree with me that that was very meaningful information for our audience and for persons to understand with reference to what is brewing at your region there, the Demerara Mahaica region, in terms of the what I would say the hijacking of Budget 2022, which is in its preparation stage. Can you share with us, Sandy, what is happening at your region there, and why is it like that? Sandy, you need to unmute.
Yes, sorry about that. I'm thinking that it is the way it is right now because we have a clerk who doesn't really see himself answerable to the council. He takes his directions directly from the Minister of Local Government and whomever in the government. So most
But tell
times
us,
when the,
Sandy, before you go there, tell us
Mhm.
what is happening with Budget 2022, its preparation, and what is playing out there, and what role your councillors, your elected councillors, had to play in terms of its preparation, and where, because Mr. Alexander did speak to the process in terms of
Mhm.
effectively fulfilling your mandate. Tell us what is happening there, and then we're going to deal with the REO and his behavior.
Okay, well, I can say to you, we had no consultations. The budget was prepared in the absence of the council, in the absence of the chairman, the vice chairman, the councillors. We were not informed at any stage about the preparation of the budget. What we have been doing is that based on our visits to the different parts of the country, of the region, based on some of the reports we have received from concerned citizens of the region, we have been compiling a list of projects because what we decided to do, given the mishap we had in the 2020 budget, is to meet and discuss and put together objective criteria in deciding how to prioritize projects. Because last year, the similar thing happened. A budget was prepared and handed to us as the region's budget. And we have the same thing happening now. So the budget really doesn't reflect the input of the council or the input of the people or the stakeholders in the region. The budget right now, as in its current construct, is really what the REO and whomever put together and would have submitted to Ministry of Finance. I can say to you, to date, we have not seen the budget. We don't know what it looks like. And even the few projects that we have, we were never consulted or asked to submit them or to have them added to the budget.
So, but the deadline for the region to submit this budget to the Ministry of Finance in terms of its first, because the Ministry of Finance do review the budget document. They do review it, and they do ask you to defend your projects and so on based on priority. And this is practically speaking, because Mr. Alexander would have spoken to the ideal aspect of things, but in terms of what practically happens, the Ministry of Finance would ask you to defend your budget. And I remember that when the APNU AFC government was in office, Minister Ronald Bulkan had a system in place where he basically ensured that there were involvement at the level of the RDC, so that the project becomes a document from the RDC, from the Regional Democratic Council, in keeping with what Mr. Alexander explained to us just now. And he also had, I remember there were chairs placed at the Ministry there of Local Government and Regional Development for the chairman to sit and to say that this is what we agreed to, this is what we support, this is what we want as elected officials of our respective regions. So we had a system like that in place, which was inherited by the People's Progressive Party. But what we have here now, as you were saying, Sandy, is a case where there is a deliberate attempt to not involve the elected officials, the regional elected officials at the level of the RDC. And the budget was basically created to represent the interests of not the RDC councillors, but some other person or in the or grouping of people. And we are assuming here it's the regional executive officer. I want to ask a political question to you, Mr. Alexander, outside of all of this. We have a president who is in office and speaks nicely about oneness and speaks about togetherness and harmony and building a nation for all its people. But do you, sir, consider the action of this administration, particularly to this event, in terms of the creation of a budget and deliberately excluding the elected official, do you consider those actions in keeping with what the president is saying as one of genuinity? Mr. Alexander?
I'm not. It's quite clear. I was on another program, and the question was posed to me about what I would say about the actions of the government. My response was very simple. That the president is saying all of the right things, and his government is doing quite the opposite. And what I have just heard about Region 4 is a case in point. The president is there saying lots of right things, but when it comes to the operations of government, they're quite contrary to what he's saying. Because separate and apart from the process I outlined, if you're talking about good governance, one of the critical elements of good governance is inclusion in decision making, inclusion, participation. And so here we have a body which is legally responsible for crafting the budget, and it's being excluded in a governance system which suggests that even those who are not legally responsible should be included. So clearly what's happening is it's in contradiction to what is required and in contradiction to what is spouted by government officials in terms of governance of this country. It's clearly a case of bad, poor governance. And I could go as far to say that the acts of the RU are in defiance of what the law provides for.
Definitely. So it is established that we have an installed president who talks the talk but simply cannot walk the walk. There are many reasons for that, but we're not going to go down that road. The question now to you, Mr. Sandy, we have this problem where the elected officials are deliberately withheld from participating in the preparation of Budget 2022. What are the actions that you and your council, what actions are you likely to take so as to not only command the due respect that the council deserve, but in terms of ensuring that there is not a repeat of such nonsense in the sense of preserving democracy and not having a creeping dictatorship in your region and by extension our country?
Well, what I can say, looking back at 2020, budget 2020, we can now see a pattern, a clear pattern, where the REO will do whatever he wants. And when we make the submissions to the Ministry of Finance, they will grant an extension for us to return to the drawing board and make some adjustments. But what we have seen is that when those adjustments are made and are submitted to the Ministry of Finance, you find that they make changes again and they revert to the initial document and the initial position, the initial budget that was submitted. So we anticipate their actions this time. And if we are going to give them an opportunity to respond, we have written to the Ministry of Finance. We have written to the minister with the responsibility for finance. We have written also to the president. And we are giving them some time to respond. Now, should that fail, then we are not going to take it easy this time. We are going to exhaust all legal and political um, options available to us. We are consulting a lot more on this, and based on the guidance we receive, based on the intervention from be it from the president or from the ministry, we will be so guided.
Thank you very much, Sandy, for that knowledge, because I think the people are worried that you are in an organization that is completely being disrespected, and they would like to know that some degree of action will be taken, not only at the level of preserving what is rightfully the council's, but also in terms of ensuring that the people are representing. Gentlemen, this was a 1 hour discussion on the budget issue of the Demerara Mahaica region, but of course, we had to first establish what are the foundations surrounding the construct of the regional democratic councils, the 10 regional democratic councils. Mr. Alexander, I would like to invite you for your closing remarks before we bring the curtain down, followed by Sandy. Can you please unmute?
Sorry. The question of regional democratic councils dates back to 1980. 1980, the reform of the Constitution, and subsequently the passing of the enabling legislation, the Local Democratic Organs Act. I said early on that the local democratic organ may be called the local authority, but there's a reason why the act is referred to as the Local Democratic Organs Act, because that act was intended to enable the constitutional provision which sought to give power to the people. And in giving power to the people, establishing an organ that acts on behalf of and in consultation with the people. Any attempt to emasculate that organ flies in the face of our Constitution, flies in the face of the Local Democratic Organs Act, and flies in the face of good governance. And it makes it difficult for Guyana to describe itself as being in the body of democratic states, if that is the manner of conduct of the fundamental business of budgeting. So that the question mark that we are faced with is, are we realizing the much touted democracy, when in fact the people's representatives are being emasculated and not being allowed to act on behalf of the people and to participate in the decision-making process on behalf of the people. This is unfortunate, but it seems to be a trend. Because on a previous occasion, I had to make the point that the minister himself had publicly indicated that local authorities could not change the rates. They could not determine how much taxes they would extract by virtue of the rate they attach to the value properties, which also flew in the face of the amendments to the Local Government Act and the Municipal and District Councils Act. Flew in the face. He was clearly given instructions that were unlawful. And so this seems to be a trend. And so what we're seeing here is the emergence of a crisis in some regards and an authoritarianism on the other hand in the administration of the affairs of the states, and more particularly in the administration of local government.
Mr. Alexander, you have summed it up there very, very well. It is precisely what is happening. We are seeing, well, I deem it creeping dictatorship. Some people are saying here that it's a walking dictatorship already. And you spoke about authoritarian rule and the likes. Mr. Sandy, your closing remarks.
Mr. Mahipaul and Comrade Alexander, we were elected to do a job. We were elected to represent the people. And whatever we do must be in the interests of the people. We will not allow what happened in 2020 to happen in 2021 moving forward. If it is that we have to resort to the courts in order to settle this matter, we will do so because we must have a budget that is the people's budget, not a budget for just friends and cronies. And we will ensure that that is achieved.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Mr. Alexander, let me thank you and Mr. Sandy. Mr. Alexander, a man with a wealth of knowledge in local government and local governance, and Mr. Sandy, who's the Vice Chairman of the Demerara Mahaica region, region number 4. Allow me to thank you, gentlemen, for spending the last hour and 7 minutes with me here on Bench Cop Radio 107.1 FM. The program was not as flamboyant as it would normally be, but I believe that this was vital and very important information for the public so that they can understand the system of governance as it relates to the Regional Democratic Council, and at the same time understand the pressure that the REO seem to believe he is bringing onto the Regional Democratic Council there. But I do know after listening to Sandy, it is going to be the other way around. The pressure will have to burst other people's pipe. And let us hope that in this fight for the preservation of democracy and for the encouragement of good governance and for the appeal for the president to walk the talk, let us hope that it does not escalate to a point where we will have to move to strict political action so as to bring about what is necessary in any true democracy. Mr. Alexander, Mr. Sandy, thank you very, very much.
Thank you also.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's program was one that provided information on the local democratic system, more precisely the Regional Democratic Council, its establishment, its intention, and the entire purpose that led to its creation, which has to do with ensuring that power is given to the people. But of course, we have a regime, an installed regime, that is more focused on centralizing everything, authoritarianism at its best, dictatorship, hogging everything for themselves, filling their pockets and their cronies' pockets with the taxpayers' money. So they're all attempting to hide their action. And we were told that the Regional Democratic Council of Region number 4 is now being completely hoodwinked from the preparation of Budget 2022. But we did hear that Mr. Sandy, who's the regional vice chairman of the Demerara Mahaica region, he does not intend, nor his council intend, to sit back, relax, and enjoy that rough ride. They are going to take it to another level, which very well could mean legal action and political action. but I do believe that it is necessary for us to preserve democracy, to fight for democracy. So thank you very much for joining me. We have had a very interesting discourse tonight. It was not as flamboyant as one would have expected. I did not go down the road of dealing with the catfish. I did not go down the road of dealing with who's dunce. I did not go down the road of calling them their right names. But at the end of the day, I am sure all of you who are on the program and currently still here listening to me was educated a little bit more when it comes to the local system, the system in Guyana, the governance structure at the RDC level, and budget and how it is presented from the regional level. Thank you very much. Good night, and do have a splendid rest of the night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockacrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking.
Guyana, and on this auspicious day, the managers and staff of 107.1 FM would like to extend to all Amerindians a happy Amerindian Heritage Month 2021. Amerindians reflect the lifestyle, beliefs, and way of life of people who are born in an Amerindian village. We here at 107.1 FM are part of the process of preserving the Amerindian heritage and to be the source of reference. Happy Amerindian Heritage Month 2021, Guyana.